Hello. Welcome back to another video on Exposing Faith, where we talk about how the Lord is using convictions to grow us in the faith, to make me into a better believer, to teach discipline, but teach for sure. And recently, I have been sharing what I've been learning as I have been walking through the Old Testament. Today, I wanted to share what I learned in today's lesson. Okay, so we're going to turn to Leviticus 21, I believe. And in this chapter, God is speaking about the holiness of priests. The priests are the most holy, the holiest individuals in the Israelite community. And to take it further, the high priest had an even greater standard of holiness. And something I noticed immediately was that when God is establishing the cleanliness and the holiness standards for the priest, he emphasizes in chapter 21, verse 8, he talks about how you are to consider him holy since he presents the food of your God. He will be holy to you because I, the Lord, who has set you apart, am holy. In verse 9, it talks about how if a priest's daughter defiles herself by promiscuity, she defiles her father, she must be burned. The standard of holiness is so high, even the responsibility of their family members falls onto them. So the uncleanliness of their family members flows into the priest as well. Like, the people around them had to be holy as well, which that was not the case when it came to the holiness of the Israelite community in general. And then further down the chapter to verse 10, it speaks specifically to the high priest, and it talks about their appearance and how their clothes they've been ordained to wear must not be disheveled, neither their hairs. So verse 10, the priest who is the highest among his brothers, who has had the anointing oil poured on his head and has been ordained to wear the clothes, must not dishevel his hair or tear his clothes. So even how they presented themselves was important to the standard of holiness that is expected from them. God establishes very clear, detailed, strict standards when it comes to the holiness of the high priest, the priest in general, but the high priest as well. And then the rest of the chapter talks about physical defects. When I was reading it, my first impression of it was like, oh, this is a little harsh. Like, you had to be perfect, just like the unblemished animals. The priest had to be perfect. They could not have any defect. So, like, for example, in verse 18, no man who has any defect is to come near. No man who is blind, lame, facially disfigured, or deformed. No man who has a broken foot or hand, or who is hunchback or a dwarf, or who has an eye defect, a festering rash, scabs, or a crushed testicle. No descendant of the priest Aaron who has a defect is to come near the food offerings to the Lord. Very harsh. Like, things that we cannot control, right? Things that humans cannot control. If you're born with a defect, if you're born with a deformity, we cannot control. But God's holiness standard does not adjust to our comfortability. So my immediate impression of it was like, oh my God, this is so harsh. But it speaks to the importance of the priest and the role that the priest holds. Like, just like pastors and teachers of today, like, there is a higher standard that you are held to. There is a higher standard that a pastor is held to compared to their congregation members. You know what I mean? Like, because you are representing God in a different way. You are a direct representation, a direct reflection of God. You influence people. People unconsciously look to you as an example of what God expects from us. So therefore, when you have that responsibility and you take it on, there is a standard, there is a higher standard, there is a high requirement, standard of holiness that you must maintain, because it goes beyond you. It goes beyond you. The argument can be made that I didn't choose this. It was chosen for me. Why do I have to be an example to these people? And it's like, the Levites did not choose to be priests. They were chosen, which it's a gift to them. And it's like, even still, the responsibility remains. As a priest, you are held to a much higher standard of holiness. It's harsh, but God is perfect. And it just is what it is. But what really stood out to me in this section I wanted to share specifically was the fact that God still takes care of us. He doesn't throw away those who are deformed. They're not up to par to do the task at hand, but they're not useless or they're not thrown away either. He still cares. And it reminded me of like all these pastors that always fall into sin but still want to maintain the pulpit responsibilities. And it's like, there are certain things, yes, you can be redeemed, but I'm thinking of a specific example that I don't want to speak on, obviously, but just to be responsible. But there's very specific falls from grace that require you to just sit down and be part of the congregation. Like, just because you can no longer fulfill this role of pastoring does not end your salvation in God. He still takes care of those who are not up to par for his responsibilities to take on his assignment as he has ordained. He still makes room for us. So yeah, in 21 verse 22, after God identifies that those who are defective cannot be priests, offering priests, that cannot take on the task of priest, he goes on in 22 to say, he may eat the food of his God from what is especially holy, as well as from what is holy. But because he has a defect, he must not go near the curtain or approach the altar. He's not shunning those who have defects. He's still providing for them. They can still partake in the blessings that the priests receive, which even the grain offerings of the community was considered especially holy by God, and it was given to the priests for their service. It was essentially payment for their service, so they could still partake in the blessings that the priests receive, but they just were not up to par. They just did not have the necessary what's the word? Stats. I want to say stats, but I feel like that's wrong. And it doesn't have to be a thing of being doomed. It doesn't mean that you're not considered a child of God anymore, or you have to be thrown away, or you can never serve God anymore, or you can never take part in his blessings or his salvation. It just means that you're not worthy of what he needs. You're not up to par to what he needs, and it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't make you less of his child. These priests that are defective, they just cannot serve him in the way that priests have been ordained to serve. I hope that makes sense, but that stood out to me because as much as it sounds very harsh, that things you cannot control, defects that formed that you could not control, that were out of your control, that you cannot fix yourself, that you have no control over it, we're still established by God as an hindrance for what he has called the priest to do. But in the same breath, he still continues to give them access to his blessings. He does not throw them away. They don't become unusable. They don't have to go outside the camp. What they lack in doesn't eliminate them from God's family. It just eliminates them from the role of a priest, from being able to complete certain tasks. Just like when a leader falls short and they have to step back and work out their sin with the Lord, it doesn't mean that they are unusable anymore, or that they're shunned from the kingdom forever, or they can never receive God's blessings, or they can never be forgiven. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that they lose everything. It just means that they are not up to par to be a leader in the body because they don't have what it takes. I hope I'm making sense. I think I'm making sense. But yeah, Leviticus 21. That's what stood out to me. I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'm actually going to head to the library and work on editing these videos. The editing is really what gets a hold of me, and it's why I can't be consistent, but it's just an excuse. I have to remember that it's just an excuse. I have the time, I have the will, I have the ability, I just need to do it. So I'm gonna go do it now. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have made it this far, thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts, comments, like the video, subscribe, stay for a while. Whatever you feel led to do, please do. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you. Bye guys.